I don't know. Because I don't want to listen to the whole thing. So I'm just like trying to find conversations and being like, maybe this is a maybe this is a boring 5 words I said and trying to like shave enough off here and
Yeah.
there to like
No, that's too much. We'll shoot for 55.
I don't know. You want to start? You can start. I'll let you start. Go ahead.
I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power, and coming up next on WAOIO LP Rochester is The Sound of Tomorrow, where we have a ton of hot picks. Yeah, that's basically all we have is hot picks. You know why? Because we like things. We think they're hot, and they're our picks. Hence why we call them hot picks. So stay tuned.
Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite what? What am I? Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power. Welcome back to The Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO LP Rochester.
Heather, how are you?
Ross, all right. How are you doing?
Good. I'm gonna stop looking at the news or social media of any kind. I so I look. We talked last week. We're mostly gonna do hot picks today, so this will be fun mostly. But I looked at more of those. I talked about we last week. We talked about those PragerU, which I think stands for university, but it's not a real college. It's like a weird white nationalist thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, that Florida is using in their educational program. And we talked about the one
Yeah.
where Frederick Douglass was like, hey, don't be like them BLM people.
Right. Which I
um,
did watch that because I believe you posted it on your X.
oh, yeah. Oh, had no idea what you were talking about because I forgot it was called that now.
Uh-huh.
Um, there are a ton of them. And that was like not the worst one at all.
Oh boy.
That was almost reasonable. Um,
Wow.
I think my favorite, and by favorite, I mean the if it were a satire, it would be the most on point, is the one where Christopher Columbus is talking to kids about how they shouldn't be mad about slavery because it's just a thing we did back then. And it's literally, the quote was, no big deal. No big
What?
deal.
What?
No big deal. Because, Heather, it was just a thing everybody was doing at the time. And we shouldn't judge people
Well,
for doing
Christopher
things.
Columbus, if everybody else was running off a cliff, would you too?
Also, again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but also,
It's our show. We can spend time on whatever we like.
these things kill me too because it's often instructive to not, I mean, aside from the idea of like, no, don't engage with the past at all, just assume that everything was fine and everything they did was okay, is a weird kind of way to teach history, because then what's the point? Like, why bother? But also, I find it's really instructive to actually figure out what people at the time thought about things, because like, you know, I do a lot of movie writing, right? So you and people are like, "Oh, Gone with the Wind, why it's controversial?" People at the time, it was fine at the time. Why do we make a big deal about it now? And it turns out people at the time actually like protested. People
Mm-hmm.
during the making of the movie, people were upset about it. Like, people protested the premiere. People were, as it was being filmed, there were people who were like very upset about it. Um, Probably more than are now because, well, I mean, who's spending a lot of time worrying about Gone with the Wind in 2023? Um, so like Christopher Columbus was thrown into jail for not only being a terrible governor, but also for like, people at the time thought he was incredibly cruel. Like the government of Spain thought he was excessively cruel and
Mm-hmm.
nasty and harsh, and way too into slavery and way too into abuse and treating uh Native Americans of which would not have been called at the time, but you know, so
Right.
people at
Yeah.
the time thought Christopher Columbus was a bit much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so even that idea of like, well, everybody was doing it at the time, it was fine. There were people at the time who were, I mean, again, like, no, it's actually okay to engage with history and go like, oh no, they did this thing in the past that was bad, and maybe it's good that we don't do it anymore. I think that's okay.
Yeah. So, do you know for what age group these weird cartoons are intended?
Oh, you know what? I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean, they're like little kid cartoons. So
Yeah.
I assume these are like elementary school.
I wonder. how they're being received by the children. Because as we've spoken of, when we were kids, we weren't taught a lot about slavery, but it was acknowledged. But there really, it was kind of acknowledged from what I recall in a way that was like, yeah, this was bad. Moving on.
Yeah.
Like, no one tried to tell me it was good, but I remember like my visceral feeling learning about it, like the entire time it was ever mentioned during my schooling. But I seem to remember like the kind of like gut punch when I was a little kid, because little kids sometimes have this innate sense of fairness and like
Hmm.
that's not fair. And so I do wonder how the cartoons are being received, because kids aren't stupid,
Yeah.
and
Well, this is all just starting, but I mean, I guess if you're so I don't know that they're being received. I don't even know if they've like rolled these out
okay.
yet. This is sort of the curriculum. This is sort of part of the curriculum. Um, so I don't even know if this has been, and it's summertime, so
Yeah.
probably nobody's really watching these yet. But I don't know. I do think kids are smarter than people give them credit for, but I also think like if you're a kid in Florida, you may or may not have parents that care. And I'm not just saying that about Florida, but also Florida,
I mean, Florida. Yeah.
So if like kids are smarter than you think, but if all you ever learn about slavery is that like it's no big deal and it's kind of fine, like if you have no other context for that, it's not like they're going into detail about uh rape. It's not like they're going into detail about like you could be tortured and murdered with complete impunity. I mean, it's not like they're going into detail
Yeah.
about,
I
you know,
guess that's true, because we did learn at least like people were beaten, people were killed, you know, people were held prisoner against their will.
yeah.
And I guess if all, you're right, you're right. If all you learn is like, it's fine. And actually, like, there are a lot of benefits to it.
Hmm.
And no one even tells you, like, oh no, this was a horribly like abusive situation. Like, this was disgusting and like evil.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about it. I'm trying to think of like a comparison. I mean, but they talk about it about like a thing that was kind of bad, but I mean, the tone is like, it's not great, but it's all right. It was fine. It was just a thing we did. We don't do it so much anymore, and everything's fine now. I mean, it's again, if you have, yeah, I don't know. I think there are a lot of kids, like you say, I think there are a lot of kids that are smarter than they get credit for. But if you don't have, I mean, you have books coming off the shelves. If you don't have parents that are engaged or interested, or are actively or are engaged and interested in, giving you a false perception of history,
Mm-hmm.
as a lot of people clearly are, because they're voting for, they're that's who
Yeah.
is voting for that's who's voting for the government and the educators in Florida. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, if you have no other context, what are you gonna
Right.
challenge it
If
with?
that's
You
all
have
you've
nothing.
ever been told, and if you can't even seek out resources to find out more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Ugh.
bad. It's real bad.
It is bad. I saw a funny yet sad TikTok along those lines. And it might have been one where the guy was playing both people, but it was a black school teacher addressing a black student in Florida and just going through what it would look like having to say, like, no, slavery was actually good. And like, of course, the student is like, wait, what? Hold up. And it was very funny. It was really well done.
Yeah. Because you're right. I mean, it's not even, I'm saying like it's being treated as though it's like it's kind of bad, but also like there's also this extra context that they're doing of like it was sort of bad, but it was all right. There was actually a really I don't have all the details, so I probably shouldn't bring this up, but there was a because I can't remember who was talking about it, but there was a historian on social media who was talking about um just a specific example of there was a under I want to say a state legislature building. I wish I could remember more details of this, but and they brought in enslaved black people to carve out the basement, which, as the person explained, is incredibly skilled work. They basically didn't have white people to do it, because it wasn't, it's not, I don't know what is involved in that, but apparently apparently very skilled work. So these people were brought in. The the slaveholder was paid more than white people would have been paid, because their work was so valuable. Of course, they weren't getting the money. The slaveholder was getting the money for it.
Sure.
Um, and then the people who did this, they didn't have greater opportunities after slavery. And he went through some of the stories of some of the people involved, and they were all sort of terrible because life after slavery was not all that much better
Yeah.
in a lot of our most cases. Um, because of the legacy of slavery. So,
Right.
the point was, here were highly skilled laborers who had obviously, I guess you could make the case, had gained these skills as enslaved people. But then if you take it even one step further than that, you go, oh, they didn't benefit from that even a tiny little bit. There's
Mm-mm.
no sense in which they benefited from. So yes, they got skills as enslaved people. They benefited from them not even a little bit. In fact, you could probably say they were punished for them because they were forced to put them to work for someone
Mm-hmm.
else. So again, that whole, I don't know. Anyway.
But and in the TikTok, like one of the things that the teacher character was teaching was how enslaved people were given clothing and food and rooms and stuff like that. And then the student character was like, but the food was unfit to eat and the clothes were rags and the housing was horrible. So I mean, yeah, I guess I mean you and I can spin a lot of stuff too, so you can see how this could easily be spun.
Well, and this is why, if you're not getting information from multiple different sources,
Yeah.
and multiple, and sources that aren't trying to obscure where they're coming from, you're vulnerable. So when you're this is why, you're taking books off the shelf, you're limiting what teachers are allowed to say even.
Mm-hmm.
um you're that's when you're really vulnerable, because you're getting information from only one source, with a particular, but that's not trying to, that's not even, I mean, I don't know how much I even believe in objectivity, period, but it's not even someone who's like making a claim to trying to be objective about past history.
Mm-hmm.
It's a person who's trying to steer you in a particular direction now, based
Yeah.
on stories from the past. So it's not even, here's something that happened in the past, do with it what you will. This information may or may not apply to current events. It's saying, no, 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 this absolutely applies to current events, and this is what you should do and how you should vote based on what I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bad.
And it's, we were talking about like we were talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
last week, and it's not, of course there's a lot of queer stuff going on. It's not just black history. I mean, the old timey, what I thought was old timey anti-Semitism, not that I believe that anti-Semitism ever went away, but the sort of weirdo old time. So Mike Flynn, who was the national security advisor under Donald Trump, one of the first people convicted, of from the Trump administration early on, within weeks,
Mm.
received a pardon from President Trump, is now a good friend of President Trump's, was giving a lengthy speech recently about how, Republicans, or Trump Republicans, are sort of like Jews in the Holocaust, except that the Jews just willingly gave their children away because that's what Jews do. So they just willingly gave their children to the Nazis, and or got on trains because they're so weak and ineffectual. So they just sort of went to their deaths voluntarily and or gave away their children. But we won't do that because we're strong, powerful people. I mean, this is the kind of so, and there are other people, of course, like Nick Fuentes, who Trump is associated with, just actively deny the Holocaust. So, there's a spectrum there too of really, really horrific. There's some really horrific spins on history going on,
Yeah.
and I mean, the you know Ron DeSantis in Florida is not doing particularly well as a presidential candidate. So I'm not sure where the Florida stuff is going to go, but this movement in general,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Donald Trump is neck and neck Neck in neck, neck and neck,
N-
neck and neck,
neck in neck.
in neck. I'll have to look that up someday,
Yeah,
but not today.
we'll remember later.
For the presidency, I mean,
Yes, I
it's a
know.
dead heat,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
this is a
absolutely. And that's one where people don't believe me. When I
yeah.
keep saying, like, no, I think there's a good chance he's going to win, everyone's like, no, no, he couldn't. Yeah, his base is so small. And I'm like, I don't think you're right. I think his base is not that small. And
Yeah,
I think there is a very, very good, and to me, absolutely bone chilling chance that he'll run
Donald Trump.
and win. Yeah. Oh,
Oh, right,
yeah.
right, right.
And win.
Yeah, I mean, right now, pretty much every poll has it's right around like 43%,
Mm-hmm.
43%.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I say
And then
people
other
keep
people,
telling me, what I mean is like people in my friends group, people I chat with, when I say like, no, I think there's a good chance he's going to win.
yeah.
That's the people, just people who believe things that I believe, but I guess maybe somehow see things with a little bit more sunshine on them than I do sometimes.
Well, and I think I don't know. I don't want to say that that's necessarily. I'm not saying that's the case here, but I mean, think sometimes that's a place of privilege. Sometimes that's rose-colored lenses. I think people need to be very serious about. I mean, in the last election, Mike Flynn, who I was just talking about, was one of the people who was working with Donald Trump about how to get the military to put down opposition to his remaining in the White House.
Yeah.
So, the idea that we're somehow, I don't know. I don't understand the complacency. I really don't. I think if I were to guess, I think in the upcoming presidential election, I think Joe Biden has an edge. As an incumbent, I think, and in the polls, like there's a slight like 1 or 2% in his direction. But when I say he has an edge, I mean like it's a razor thin edge. Like if you forced me to guess, I might say Joe Biden, but like it's like 51-49, if that, or 50 and a
Yeah.
half for, I mean, and again, that could go either way. That's really like way far away. And the fact that all this is going on and Donald Trump is only increasing, even as he's got people denying the Holocaust. He's got people,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's sending people out to speak on his behalf, denying the Holocaust, denying that slavery is a good, I mean, denying that slavery was a bad thing. Um,
But I mean, the thing is, this is a horrible thing about the US. People like those things. People believe those things. They want
yeah,
to believe those things, and they do believe those things.
yes,
And the only thing that I think what we saw as progress in a way toward a more equal society was that it became less okay for those people who believe that the Holocaust didn't happen, who want to believe that slavery was a good thing and maybe we could go back to it. They learned, oh, you might get yelled at
yeah.
if you say that, like outside of your close circle of friends that you know also believe that with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And same with all of the gay and the trans stuff. Like plenty of people have always hated the queer community. And then, Target goes and they're putting up all their rainbow stuff at Pride and, they're shoving it in our faces. But if you said that, then people would go like, stop saying that, you bigoted jerk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't being a bigoted jerk might mean that people, weren't your friends. They might tell you were wrong. They might yell at you.
Yeah.
But now it's back in style.
Oh, and I guarantee, I mean, for 90% of my very evangelical family that I have that I have no interaction with and zero interest in interacting with, um, these things are all right on the surface and things they would have told you beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
For for a for for another part of my family with whom I do have some interaction, what I have found is even that and I think this is true for a lot of people. Um, Donald Trump giving them permission to voice those things
Mm-hmm.
trumps. Sorry to unintentional pun, but trumps everything else in the sense that this person does not believe in any part of Donald Trump's program otherwise. But the politically, whatever it is at this point, I mean, really, I think if Donald Trump had a political program in the last campaign, I think now it's boiled down. I think now it's very boiled down to like, I don't think there's,
I don't think
he's not
there's
talking
a
about taxes or
political plan.
jobs or anything like that.
Well, I
Um,
mentioned
but
last week my barking, and one time I barked at a Trump voter in my life. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm overreacting. I'm reacting emotionally. Which of his policies do you like? Do you like tax? Do you like healthcare? Do you like education? What policy of his you really got your vote? Trump voter couldn't tell me.
yeah, no, that's exactly
Couldn't
it. And
name a policy. So I'm sorry, I derailed your thought, but it dovetailed there.
yeah, no, I mean, it's the same thing. It's actively opposed to many of the things that Donald Trump will do, has done, did as president. But it's more than enough to be able to be publicly racist,
Yeah.
be publicly anti-immigrant, be publicly, if I weren't queer, I think probably publicly anti-queer. Um, I don't have enough conversations with the person to know. I bet they'd have some thoughts on trans people regardless.
Yeah.
Um, so the freedom, and when I say freedom, I mean the freedom to do those things and have people go yes,
Yeah.
as opposed to going
Right.
is worth any failure. I mean, and you look at for all, and we've talked about, there are things I respect about Joe Biden. There are things there are things about, I could certainly give you a better breakdown of my opinions on Joe Biden's political program and things that he's done than any Trump voter could about things Trump has done. There are things I like, there are things I don't love. But on all the measures that people are supposed to care about,
Mm-hmm.
things are a lot better under Joe Biden. Unemployment is better, the economy is better overall. And again, I'm not my um my feeling is that those measures are not necessarily the best measures, and that there are a lot more things we need to be doing as a country to uh, normalize, equalize, put people on solider footing and put people on more even footing. However, of the things that supposedly Republicans super duper 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 duper
Mm.
care about, the country is immeasurably better. I mean, just there is
Yeah.
none of those numbers that you can look at and go, oh, this is worse than it was before. But so again, what's the argument? Oh, the black people are going to come take our stuff. I mean, that's literally what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. I mean, it really it it's another one where people aren't saying what they mean. Like, I'm still hearing, and this is bizarre, people saying, like, well, Trump is a very good businessman. And I'm like, no, he's not.
No, he's absolutely not.
Like, just do a couple Google cross references. Like, this is publicly available information.
Yeah.
That no, he's not.
He's been bankrupt 5 times, I think.
And then I will concede, like, well, I don't know. I'm not a businessman myself. Maybe you want to be bankrupt as much as you can. And
Maybe.
that makes you a good businessman. Like, if being bankrupt a lot means you're a really good businessman, then he definitely is.
And and I guess, I mean, if that's the case, which maybe it is, because
I'm not a
again,
businessman.
the way capitalism works, um, are those is that the skill you want to is that the skill that you want to you want to praise to be your, you know, the head of your of your country's administrative branch, executive branch. I how many times does the United States do we want the United States to go bankrupt? I don't know if that's the same. Maybe that is a good business skill, but I don't know if that's a one-to-one comparison for something that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that bankruptcy was like a thing I didn't want to do.
Well, like if I'm, if I were, I look at voting for anyone as, hiring someone to do a job. And you may not get the perfect person that you agree with on everything, but of the choices, you pick the best one you can find. Um, if I were hiring someone to be a manager at my coffee shop, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, you're a really good businessman because you everything went bankrupt all the time." You know what
Right.
I
You've
mean? Like
tanked a
that's not the
ton of
skill.
businesses, so come in and tank mine.
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
again, maybe that's great because for rich people that is a thing. You can write off all your debts, blah 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 blah, but it's not necessarily, is that the skill you want?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean it really is just that it's just that people want to be hateful and have no one yell at them.
Hmm.
And then all of the people who would try to sneakily say that stuff and then get yelled at would be like, I still have my First Amendment rights. It's like, well, your First Amendment rights don't mean that people aren't going to yell at you.
Right.
It just means you're not going to get arrested. Like, we can still yell. We have
Yeah,
First Amendment rights too.
I know that kills me. It's not people think that the first person who says if they can be the first person to say something, then they're the one that gets the First Amendment rights.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
like,
know what I mean?
no,
Like,
I also have them.
yeah,
Like,
like I can say clapping back at you is also actually none of this is a First Amendment right issue because no one's throwing you in jail. The federal
well,
government is not arresting you.
that's the darn thing. It's
So,
like, why are you talking about that? I didn't call the cops on you.
mhm.
I said you were a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, I'm allowed to say that.
I
And
don't
you
know.
can't call the cops on me for saying that you're a jerk.
No, I can because you canceled me.
Oh, God.
Uh,
Oh, those poor folks out there being silenced. I hear that Cracker Gel is responsible for a lot of that silencing.
Heather, should we do some hot picks
Oh, yeah,
that we promised 20 minutes ago?
we sure as heck did more like half an hour ago.
Did we talk last week? Oh, you know what? Let me let me so here's what's going to happen, everybody. We're going to be experimenting with going back live in the studio
We
soon.
are.
So it's going to be a whole different world. But the way this works now is we pre-record this, and then if there are sound effects or anything like this, I have to remember to go back in and put them back in. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to pretend like we're playing the Hot Picks theme, and then like 50-50 chance I'll remember to do it. So there might be blank air, and if so, that's what's going on.
I'll do the bass. I'll
Okay.
do a funky bass to remind
Okay.
you.
Um, so I have a few things. Who wants to go first? I think we both have some hot picks, right?
I think I have one that we both have. So
Okay.
I'll go first with that because you brought this to my attention last week that there's a new season of Nailed It.
Yeah.
I have been watching, I'm almost done with the new 10 episode drop. It's lovely.
This would be the
And
big nailed it baking challenge, of course.
yeah, that's right. Because you told me, I think this was after we got off the air, that it was a format change this season. And as everybody knows out there, I'm like a huge Nicole Byer fan.
Yeah.
And when you told me that there is the format change that now like everybody sticks around and like there are these coaches and stuff, I was like, oh, huh. And when I first got into it, I was a little bit disappointed because we get a little bit less airtime with Nicole and Jacques,
We do. And I sort of
which I
I
love. Like, I don't care that much about the baking, really. I just love them so much.
I like the baking too, but yeah.
But how far into the series are you now?
Not far enough that I want you to tell me anything.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't think I could really give any spoilers.
I mean, you can talk about the show because it's just for I mean,
No, it's
just
like it's a nice show. Everybody is really charming and supportive and cool. And like Nicole and Jacques have this beautiful like banter between them and stuff. And it's a really nice, charming show.
yeah, it is. I mean, the format change was weird at first, and I didn't. Not that I did. Also, I don't know if this is. I don't know if this is. I'm unclear if this is nailed it or if this is a different show. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if this is just like the new Nailed It,
I
or if
think
this is,
I think it's still nailed it, but they're
but it's
just
not
doing something
technically.
different.
But it's not technically. I mean, technically, it is like a different show with a different like production setup and everything like that. So I don't know if this is just like what Nailed It is going forward, or if they're going to do other Nailed
Yeah, I don't know if they're
the
going to go
original Nailed It.
back to the format of different challengers every week, just doing one thing and then going, or doing two
Mm-hmm.
things and then going.
Which is fine. I mean, either way, I'm fine with it. Yeah, there is a little bit less of Nicole and Jock, which is, I mean, I guess because they have the coaches. It is sort of weird, like because like they used to just hang around the whole time and sort of make
Yeah,
comments on things, and now they leave, which I don't. I'm like, you guys could just stay, and that would be fine.
I
I
know.
mean,
I feel like it's such a long day. Like, what really is Nicole Byer going to do sitting there for 6 hours?
yeah, and that's a thing. I remember when we, meaning me and other people who were not you, because it was first thing in the morning, interviewed Nicole Byer for something else,
It
some
was
other
when she
thing.
was in town.
Yeah, it was for the at the Carlson. She was at the Carlson. So
Yeah.
I remember her talking about, even on the old show, she was, because there was you talked a little bit about Nailed It. And she was like, oh my god, it's such a long day. She was like, you don't want to be a contestant on there. Like, people think they want to be contestants on there, but you don't. She's like, it's so long, it's just forever, and you're just under hot lights. so
Yeah.
so I can understand it, but
And I do love
um
how she's wearing like slippers and Crocs and stuff on set. Like I
I do
adore
I do
that.
like I do like that she's just in this one, especially, she's just
Yeah.
like, I mean, and this might have been like the producers, like, we are going to have Nicole be very, I don't know, but I like the idea that she's just like, I'm going to wear slippers, and I'm just going to be as comfortable as I want, and it's going to be
Yep.
fun.
Because on the other seasons, sometimes she is wearing slippers,
Hmm.
like big fluffy animal slippers. And I
Hmm.
like that they're just right out there. She is looking just more and more radiantly stunning all the time, too.
She's a very pretty lady.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I actually like the cooking tips on the show. I like that they go through. So the format is, for anybody who's not seen this, is they do like a baking 101 at the beginning. It's a
Yeah.
bunch of contestants. Like, they start out with 10, right?
10.
And they do this baking 101 where they teach them a skill, and then they have to apply the skill in like a mini version, and then they have to apply that skill to like the main challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like the tips, because there is stuff where I'm a I don't know. I don't know where to put my baking level, because like I'm very weirdly good at some things.
Your breads are to die for.
Thank you.
I
Um
don't know if I've had a cake that you've baked.
yeah, cakes I'm hit or miss. I mean, they always come out fine. Like, they always come out tasting fine. Um they always come out fine. Sometimes they come out great, but sometimes it's like, oh, the texture's not quite what I wanted. And decorating, I'm not great with. Decorating, like, I have to do. So that's kind of where I like with the baking 101, when
Mm-hmm.
they go through, like, when they're teaching how to do, like, I didn't know how to make like frosting flowers and things like that. So I was like, oh, okay, that's
Right.
that's a skill that I don't know that I need in life, but I kind of want to
It
have.
was neat to see though.
Hmm.
And even little tips I've picked up from Nailed It, like how to use the piping bags and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever do that, but I could see myself running into the stuff that the people on the show run into.
Hmm.
And now I won't.
Yeah.
And like, that's pretty cool. And another thing I really like is, life is a little challenging at times.
Sure.
And everyone on the show is just so pleasant. Like, all the contestants are just delightful people, it seems. The coach is lovely. The guest host, wonderful. Like,
Yeah. It is nice. And it's sort of, I mean, like Great British Bake Off, which is another one I really love. It's similar. I mean, that's more intense because it's more, there's more pressure to do a good thing, whereas this is more just like, the pressure is sort of like, oh, just do a pretty good thing that's nice. It's not
yeah,
like, you don't have to make a professional level thing necessarily. You just have to kind of like do a thing that's pretty good and shows you learn something and
Yeah.
and that's sort of fine. Um, but it's the same vibe, everybody's, it's nice. I don't know. I guess I like when reality shows when people are nice.
Hmm. I do too. But so that has been a super duper treat. I'll probably finish the series tonight.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sort of watching them along. I think we're on the fourth one or something like that.
Yeah, you know how I do. I get into something. I'm like, okay, well, now I have to watch all of this. And then I'll get back to the other thing I was watching.
Yeah. Um, oh, I'll do a book. You want to do a book?
Oh, do a book.
So I picked I this is not necessarily my normal kind of thing, but I picked up on a trip. I was looking for well, normally when I go on a trip, I look for an Agatha Christie book, right? Because that's my thing. I collect Agatha Christie books when I go on trips from
Yes.
different places. So we are in a place and I was going to get my Agatha Christie book. And then I was like, but I've been to this place before and I have an Agatha Christie book from this place and it wasn't that
Oh,
exciting a place. It wasn't like,
yeah.
if I went back to Hyderabad or something like that, then I'd be like, oh, I'd get another Agatha Christie book from Hyderabad, sure. But this was sort of like, I mean, it was St. Catherine's.
Binghamton. Oh, I mean, so
So
close. Pretty
it's
much
another
Binghamton.
country, but
Yeah.
it's not, it's like what, like an hour away. It's not that big
Yeah.
a
No,
deal.
it's pretty close.
So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't need a Christie book from here. And what I did spot was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, um, which I had heard a lot about from my homosexual friends, mostly.
Is that a new show on Netflix?
It's a movie on Amazon Prime or a Prime Video.
Close enough.
Sure.
I thought I saw something on my TV about it.
Okay. Do you have Prime Video?
Yeah.
Okay. So you okay, so that's legit then.
Yeah.
Um
No, I watch
yeah,
TV now and I go to movies.
yeah,
Very
and I
modern.
you are very modern. Look at you. Look at you. You're a 20th century gal. Um yeah, no, it was so I picked so I was like it was one that had come up a few times in my, because I'm big on gay Twitter.
Yeah, you are.
That's my whole scene.
Gay X,
So
they call it now.
gay X, yeah. I still call it gay Twitter because X is stupid.
It is. The logo is
Um,
awful. It's so off putting.
it's so terrible.
Every time I
And
see
it's
the
a
logo, I'm like, like I have a visceral. It's like, ugh. It's like a
I
snack.
forget what it is. It's an off the shelf typeface. It's not even something that was designed. It
Helvetica.
was like, is it?
I
No,
don't
but it's got
know.
the no, but it's got the shape. Because it's got the like
Copper plate.
the one cross is like hollow in the middle. So, but it's something. Um,
Rome Gothic.
um, but yeah, so I picked up this book because you know, cutesy dorky again. I was like, but I don't do a lot of romance. And I thought it was like a YA thing, but it's not. And I was like, okay,
Ooh, hubba
I
hubba. Does it get steamy?
it's a little steamy. It's a tiny bit
Ooh,
steamy. Yeah, because I felt like, okay, I can do YA or I can do romance, but I don't know that I can do a YA romance. Like that might be a bridge too far.
that might be a bridge too far.
But it's cute. So it's about the son of the president of the United States, who's a lady in the book, which is nice. I mean, the son is not a lady. The president's a lady. Who, it's the whole so there's the prince of the under prince of England, the spare heir prince of England. So the younger brother of the prince of England, who's also a
Okay.
prince of England. You know what I'm saying? Why do I not know what a prince? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Not
Like
first
a
in
Prince Harry,
line. Yeah.
like a Prince Harry,
Like not first in line to be king.
right?
Second in line, but still a
Um,
prince.
and so there's like a antagonistic relationship between the two of them, but then they go to thing and they fall in love, and it's really cute. I mean,
Aw.
and it's it's just smart enough as well that it's not it's smart enough and emotional enough about like and has enough of a whiff of reality about like how it would be for two people in the public spotlight and a Prince of England who's really not supposed to be in a gay relationship with anyone for any reason. It's smart enough about that it's really charming. And we watched the movie the other night. Mike had not read the book, so I read the book. The book was adorable. We watched the movie on Prime Video, which is also very cute and adorable. Again, it's a it's sort of a cheesy romance, especially the movie a little bit, but I enjoyed it. I it's it I enjoyed it at the beginning as far as the book, and then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I sort of feel like I know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a romance, like, oh, they're not, oh, we don't like you, I don't like you. Oh no,
Yeah.
oh my God, maybe we should kiss. Okay, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
like let's wrestle.
Yeah. But then it re-engaged me toward, and I got really emotional. I actually cried near the end. So
Oh.
and I would say if you're a person who's thinking about reading it, I debated at the store because they had like the cheaper paperback version, but they also had the hardcover collector's edition with like a bonus chapter,
Ooh.
which I was sort of like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. It's like twice the price because I was in a bookstore, so everything was full price, which is ridiculous. But it's good supporting a bookstore, I guess. Um, so I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna, like you get a book sometimes and they're like, oh, it's got a bonus, whatever, and it's always
Mm-hmm.
something you don't care about usually. I was like, do I really want to pay like double for this extra chapter? But then I sort of did it. I was like, well, what the heck? I'm on vacation. Who cares? And it's like the extra chapter is like a sequel. It wasn't
Oh,
just a little like it was not just a little because I thought it was going to be like a bonus scene or something, like here's when they
right.
went to the movies.
Yeah.
But it's like a chat. I mean, it's like a sequel. Like it is like a it is
Like an extra novella.
I mean, it's not novella length, but it's sort of like it carries the story forward for years.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, that's
So
some bang for your buck.
yeah, so I feel like I'm glad I got it, and I feel like if you're someone who's interested in reading the book and you're thinking about, you think you might like it, which I guess you wouldn't get it if you didn't think you might like it. Maybe the hardcover collector's edition is the way to go. Just that might be my recommendation, but you don't need it. I mean, the story's complete without it, but if you're, I think I enjoying the book, I would have gotten to the end and then been sad
Yeah.
that knowing that there was more that I didn't get. And it's not like you can just, I don't think you can buy that any other way. So it's not
Uh-huh.
like, so I would have had to rebuy the book, which I would never do.
Oh, I think you would
So
do it.
I don't think I'd buy a sec. I think I'd want to, and then I'd be like, I'm not going to rebuy this book for a second chapter. Although what I could see myself doing is gifting
Yes.
the paperback version to somebody,
That is exactly what you would
possibly
do.
Heather, and
I mean,
then
because I would probably enjoy it. Oh, no, that I think it's funny that you think you wouldn't rebuy it. You would definitely find a way to be like, well, I'll pass this copy along to someone who's going to like it.
hmm.
And you wouldn't just unload it either. It would be thoughtful. You would think about like who would like this? Maybe me. And then you would definitely buy the one with the extra chapter.
Well, see, it was weird because the way it was sort of presented was like an extra chap is because the story is from the point of view of the president's son, um, the American character, and it was like, oh, an extra bonus chapter from Henry's point of view, and I was so that made me feel like again it was just like a bonus scene or like if it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the things from the book. And thinking that, I probably wouldn't have bothered. I don't think I would have cared enough because I would have felt like, oh, maybe that's cute, but it doesn't sound like extra story. You know what I mean? I didn't think it was extra story. I thought it was like it it just didn't it I feel like they undersold the bonus
Yeah.
chapter.
I'm glad that you figured it out.
Me too. So that's my story on that.
I like that. I've got one that is kind of a book and then related watching as well.
Okay.
So years and years and years ago, so many years ago, because I can't remember anything and I don't have the book, and I could have looked this up, but I didn't know that we were really talking about books specifically. I read this book called The Power,
Oh, okay.
and it was very good, and I very much enjoyed it. I don't really want to give any spoilers because I'm finding that in the show that was made about the book. It's really, in my opinion, season 1 is out. And with the writer's strike and everything going on, I don't know when season 2 will be available. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's anywhere. I don't know if it's going to drop. I do know that people need to be paid fairly for doing hard work.
Sure.
So I'm completely in support of the strike. I'm in no way complaining about season 2 of The Power being delayed because of it. But
Is this a Prime Video
this
show
is
as
on
well?
Prime. Yeah, this is on Prime.
Okay. I say that because I don't know anything about it, but I had to write several thousand words about Prime Video earlier today, and The Power came up, but not in a way that I did anything about it. So anyway, please, sorry,
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
interrupt.
So I had read the book, then I was listening to some podcast or another, and the guest was someone who was an actor on the show. So I knew the show was coming out. So it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then I got one of those, turn on my TV and Amazon's like, hey, do you want to watch The Power? I said, yes, I do. Wow. I, the only hint I'll give about the plot is that the premise is girls start developing an extra organ called the skein that allows them to shoot fire and electricity out of their hands. And then the whole book is about how this progresses, how the world receives this. And the show is so interesting because it's shot like all over the globe. And I like that when I get to see different cities that I've never seen.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a cool, diverse, very, women centric type of show. I would say check it out. It's really good.
All right. I'm seeing that it has not yet been renewed, but we'll see. It's so weird between
Oh, it's
COVID and
gotta
now.
be renewed. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, between COVID and the writer's strike, it's like, well, and there's a whole thing too. I mean, and this is part of a little bit of what I was writing about earlier. This whole, the streaming services were all doing this like, we will run at a loss. We will put out a million shows. A lot of them
Mm-hmm.
very good. I mean, like, and I'm not saying like, they were putting out crap. Like, I'm sure there was a lot of crap, but there were a lot of good streaming
Mm-hmm.
shows that have come out over the past few years as all these streaming services have been like, we're going to throw a ton of money to put out all these shows so we can like undercut the competition and be the best streaming
Yeah.
service with the best shows. And then between COVID, I don't, this was all happening before the writer's strike, but I think all those bills came due. So a lot of good shows,
Yeah.
like a lot of really good shows are just like, we're not going to do it. So I think a lot of good shows have, um, that probably would have been like locks to come back are now like maybe, or they got canceled. So hopefully,
Ugh.
I certainly hope that I hope that the power comes back for
I
season 2. I
certainly
will
hope that it comes back.
keep my
They
fingers
left it
crossed.
on an awesome cliffhanger, which I hope that's not a spoiler for anyone. It's just a cliffhanger.
Well,
Um,
and this is the thing too, like, I mean, this is what sort of stinks with some of this stuff too, because like I don't know what shows to start anymore. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to get sucked into this if it's gonna get canceled.
And that is a bummer too. And then I think it was Paramount that did this weird thing where I was watching Rise of the Pink Ladies, which super fun show. Again, like pretty women focused and all that. I very much like that in a show. And it's it only had, I think, 10 episodes. And by episode 7, it was the weirdest thing. I had to like scrounge to find the rest of the series. And I found out what happened was they aired it so briefly and then they took it down so that they don't have to pay royalties to any of the actors.
Oh yeah, and that's happened to a ton of shows,
Yeah.
like on Paramount, on Mac, HBO Max is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who else, but that's yeah, and that's such a weird economic thing too, because like shows that don't do well at all, it's not really an issue because they're not
Mm-hmm.
generating a lot of views and getting a lot of royalties. So that's a different issue. But so people are like, oh, this show must have done really terribly because they erased it from existence. And it's like, no, it did well enough that people were watching it that they were going to have to pay royalties,
Yeah.
which, as we know, if you've been paying attention to the writer's strike, are nothing. So the fact that they're trying to make their money back that way is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Hmm.
That's a wild thing.
Yep, it's pretty absurd. So I love my TV, but I'm so in favor of the strike.
Oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, if you hear me on this show complaining about anything that's not, I'm waiting for a show that I'm excited about or waiting for, it has nothing to do with not being 1000% in
Yeah.
support of the strike, and whatever needs to happen there happens. And if I'm
Yep.
inconvenienced or a show that I want to come back does not come back right away, that is on the studios, who
Hmm.
will not pay a few extra pennies to people who are doing a lot of work for hardly any money at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to make that clear because I didn't want us to come off like, oh, I want to see the power. Oh, I'm mad. But I
Mhm.
can be patient. Um, but yeah, so also Rise with Pink Ladies, if you can find it anywhere. I thought it was a great watch.
I think you can't find it anywhere,
I
but
think you
maybe you can.
can't. I think you can't. Maybe, I
Well,
don't know, maybe you can buy it on DVD at some point.
I see, and this is the thing too. A lot of these things have not been putting things out on DVD or Blu-ray anymore. So some of these things are just like gone, and they're not. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like I'm sure they're on a server somewhere. So I'm sure somebody like. And it's wild. There was a show called Snowpiercer, which is not even like my favorite show, but it was a show we watched, and they filmed the last season. It was
Yeah.
done, ready to go. Just it was like a show we watched that was fine.
Hmm.
And I was into it, and we were into it enough. It's not like my favorite show, but we were into it enough. And you watched for like 3 seasons, and the fourth season was like the planned final season. They were like, nope, we are just gonna destroy
Yeah.
that, and because we don't want to pay royalties to anybody. It's like it's done though. Can you just show it to me? It's the weirdest thing. It's so, I mean, it shows you
So
how out of
weird.
whack
Yeah, and
the
then
entertainment economy is.
I don't understand why things suddenly disappear behind a paywall. Like I
Hmm.
think you and I both have Amazon Prime, and say what you will about Amazon, I get stuff from Amazon. I have Prime. I was watching, this was some years ago, Key and Peele, that was just included with my Prime subscription. And all of a sudden, just one night I was watching just fine. One night I watched one free episode, and then it was $2.99 per episode to watch anymore.
Yeah,
And I was like, what is this model?
yeah, that happens too. Yeah, things get shit, or they move to another streaming service that you don't have,
Right.
which
Yeah, it
is also
is.
annoying.
It is definitely weird. I wonder if Amazon has some kind of automated cap on it. Like, oh, this person is now well into season two. They're probably hooked and they're going to start paying
I
2.99 per half hour or something.
No,
You don't
I
think
think
it's
they're
like a
just.
little
I
automation
think
like
they're.
that?
No, I don't think everything's up. Do I think that Amazon is watching you carefully to see what you're watching? No, I think it's.
That's why I figured there was just something built into some kind of like scan that runs. Not
No,
that
I
some
think
human tagged anything.
no, I think the contracts just change, and they have like, oh, we have this for 5 years, and then we don't have it, or
Hmm.
or somebody decides, not enough people are watching this, or too many people are watching this. I don't think they're looking at you in particular. I mean, I care what
I
you're watching, but I don't
wonder.
know if I don't know if Mr. Amazon does.
I wonder. I mean, because I know that Mr. Amazon is watching me through my security cameras.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Should we do one more and then get out of here?
We've got time for one more quick one. It's your turn.
Okay. So this is another show. That's also a book, but I haven't read the book. It's actually several books. So, Slow Horses is a show I heard about on Apple TV Plus. It's got Gary Oldman and Kristen Scott Thomas, and it's a spy thriller, which I wasn't sure how much Mike was going to be into, and I had heard good things about it. It's about these, so it's MI5, so it's England, um, and it's all these people who are sort of screw ups,
Ooh.
and they just have them in this like outbuilding, this like building on the far side of town where they do like paperwork and stuff, or they have to sort through garbage or do the stuff that nobody else wants to do. But of course, you know, like in the first season, they wind up getting involved with something that's they're not supposed to get involved with, and then they're sort of being used also by their higher ups in MI5 as like patsies for something else, for like an operation. So, what's fun about it is like The characters are really interesting. It's funny, and it's also like it's not like they're secretly superheroes, which I think would be tempting. Like, oh, they know better than all that. They're genuinely kind of like not. They're varying levels of not all that great at their jobs. So it's very, I don't know, it's like a spy thing, but it's not like super, it's most things are like, oh, these spies or they can do anything and they
Yeah.
could sneak into anywhere and blah blah blah. And these people are like, they're sort of like okay at their jobs, and they wind up getting in situations that are over their heads. So it's got a sense of humor, and it's more relatable than usual spy things, and it is genuinely very funny, and it's also super twisty turny. Like, a lot of even really good shows, usually you can kind of guess what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
With this, like, stuff happens and I'm like, whoa, I did not see that coming even a tiny bit. So it's neat. And it's um speaking of things getting canceled, it's 2 seasons. It's been renewed for at least 2 more seasons. So, and each of the seasons so far has been pretty well self-contained. So if you're someone who's looking for something to try out, it's pretty safe because they're like 6 8 episode seasons, 8 episodes maybe. Um, and then you're done, or you can go watch more, or you can wait for the next couple. So you can either be done with it, you can either enjoy it and be done with it, or you can keep watching and get more. So it's pretty safe any way you want to do it.
I love it. I'm going to go watch right now because you know what, Ross? We got to get out of here.
Time to go.
Thanks for tuning in, Space Cadets, and stay tuned to WAYO LP Rochester for more of that great whale content. Great whale content. What?
That good stuff. Get you some of that good stuff.
Oh, we have fun.